Hi, Logic Language Learners. I hope you're all well. So, do you trust me? Trust me. This video is about using the word trust, but more importantly, it's about recognizing how to copy and follow a pattern when you're looking at a phrasal verb. So we've done other videos on phrasal verbs, but I just wanted to focus on the two phrasal verbs that you use to use the word trust. So what is a phrasal verb? A phrasal verb is, some people think about this mentally and approach this differently. So some people say a phrasal verb is when you add a preposition to another verb that stands alone normally, which thereby changes the meaning of the word. So in English, if you had come, you'd have come on, come down, come across, come up, get over, get on, get down. So as far as I'm concerned, for the learner, a phrasal verb is when if I absolutely instantly uploaded all the words in French to your brain so that you knew every word, if you were to directly translate from English for something, it still wouldn't be exactly the same, it wouldn't be the same construction. So you use phraseling already. So for example, locutions, as some people call it, or some people call them compounds. We have to be careful because if you go to word reference, and you look up the conjugations, then the auxiliary forms of the verbs, that means the ones with three words with the verb in the middle, they're often known as les verbes composés, compound forms. So that gets confusing. But compound is basically that you're sticking some stuff together. So the compound form then you've used already. So for example, if you said there is a problem, you've said, I imagine most of you, il y a, where you've had to use have. If you said I'm cold, most of you, or I'm hungry, most of you have probably managed j'ai froid, j'ai faim, where you've learned to use a different verb than the one we would as standard use in English. And so what happens is people say, right, I'm hungry, j'ai faim. And then I ask for I was hungry, and straight away they go to j'étais, and I'm like, because they know that is I was, with the verb to be. And what verb did you just use? What verb did you replace the verb you use in English with? You used avoir instead of être. So you'd go to avoir in the past as well. So in other words, that's your verb for the whole shebang, the whole everything. So this is where phrasal verbs can really be, we can sort of pretty much say you can get away with it as long as you only change the verb. So you look at a construction and you say, right, what's the verb there? Because in most phrasal verbs, I'll attach a video underneath about phrasal verbs. But in most phrasal verbs, it's going to contain one verb that you actually already really know. If you look at these phrasal expressions, I resent him, je lui en veux. What verb is at the end? Veux. That you more than likely know. Je veux, je voulais, je voudrais. So you would just add the preposition, you would add the other stuff, the pronouns that are in there as well. So je lui en veux, I resent him. Je lui en voulais, je lui en voudrais, I would resent him, etc. He is part of a team. Il fait partie, whatever, de l'équipe, d'une équipe. What verb are we using? Faire. Il s'en prend à quelqu'un, to get up in someone's face. What verb is there? Prendre. Most phrasal verbs will just contain an avoir, a prendre, a faire, an être. They'll contain a very, very, very nice basic verb. Because if it were a more, je m'en sors, I'm getting out of here, je m'en sors. What's the verb at the end? Sors. Because, we recognize that. So most phrasal verbs contain a very, 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 very simple verb. Because if it were a more complicated verb, we wouldn't need its accessories on either side. Same as in English, most phrasal verbs are going to be like around come, get, give over, give up, whatever. So in other words, it's just a case of keeping our eye on what the verb is in the middle and following the structure that you've been given and only changing the tense of that verb. Now, you know another type of phrasal verb called ABC verbs that I call ABC verbs, which is when you have a verb, a standard. On the left, you have a reflexive. On the right, you have a preposition. So, for example, se souvenir de, s'occuper de. And you've done those, and I will attach that link underneath as well. And that's a very nice specific pattern, because all you then need to do is change the reflexive appropriately, go into the appropriate tense of the verb, and then use de or at or whatever on the end. So all of that is to basically say, let's have a specific look at two ways of saying trust, okay? Now, another really common feature with phrasal verbs is going from French to English or English to French, where in the one language, it will be one verb or one, word. And then in the other language, it will be phrasal. So for example, in French, chercher. In English, yes, it could be search or it could be look for, which is a phrasal. Regarder. In French, one verb. In English, look at. Okay. Admittedly, also watch, but look at as well. Écouter, listen to. Could be listen, but listen to. So they're kind of examples where it's one word in one language and more than one word in another language. Okay. Sometimes it will be more than one in one language, more than one in another language. So, for example, je m'entends avec vous. I get on with you guys. Je m'entends avec vous. So sometimes it'll be combo and combo. So, getting back to trust. If you were to look up trust in the dictionary, you would see the following. In fact, let me make absolutely clear and certain that you would see exactly the same format I'm going to imagine. Now, I won't attach this underneath because recently, videos where I've been attaching, because there is a temporary editing team on YouTube, if I've attached other links to Word Reference, I'm sure Word Reference love the amount of people I send to their site, but the temporary YouTube team has been taking down videos where I've been referring to other websites, which is me giving them traffic and me asking you guys to go and have a look. So I'm just going to go to Word Reference and type in trust instead of me giving you the link. So here we go. So if we were to type in trust, sorry, it's still on Spanish from showing somebody something earlier. Shout out to Julie and Mike, who won't hear this because they're learning Spanish with me, not French. So if I type in trust, good. Now we've got three expressions which come up straight away. Faire confiance à. I will write these underneath. Avoir confiance en. And what else have we got? Pouvoir compter sur. Pouvoir compter sur. Something's bitten my neck, by the way, and not a human being, because that would be in violation of lockdown rules. So, faire confiance à. Now, you probably look at the word confiance and recognise it as having something to do with confidence or something, yeah? So, if I gave you faire confiance à, straight away, what verb are you spotting is in that little combo? Yeah, and it's got a little LOC in blue, which says like locution, as in kind of like a combination phrase for a verb. So if I gave you faire confiance à, the first thing you'd spot is that it contains faire, which is a really normal standard verb. So if I asked you just to quickly conjugate faire everywhere, so je fais, je faisais, I was doing, je ferais. Yeah, il faut que tu fasses, subjunctive, whatever. We're pretty good with faire. They do, ils font. Nous faisons, whatever, vous faites, we're pretty good. So in other words, faire confiance à. Now, like any, and I shall also attach the dictionary infinitive video, which shows you how to take a structure either from the dictionary and make it real, or take a real structure and formalize it in the dictionary mode for your head. Is what you've got to mainly look at is the difference between using it with a name or a noun and the difference between using it with a pronoun. So for example, if I saw faire confiance à, to trust, and I just said, right, I trust Jessica, je fais confiance à Jessica, yeah, that's going to work. I trust the boy, je fais confiance au garçon. So you know already that if you have an expression which uses à or de, and you are linking it to a le or a lay, that you're going to have du, des, au, aux. So I trust the women. Je fais confiance aux femmes. All right. the specific women that we're talking about. So fine. So in other words, if I said I used to trust, what's the verb in faire confiance à? Faire. So I just put faire in the imperfect. Je faisais confiance à. I will trust, my friend. Je ferai confiance à mon ami, whatever. So it's just a case of manipulating the faire. Now, what happens if we had a pronoun situation? In other words, I trust him. Well, if I gave you je parle à somebody, I speak to Brian, je parle à Brian, okay? I speak to him, you should now know it's je lui parle. You know about direct and indirect. I have to point out at this point in French that sometimes it's a little bit annoying. There are expressions that you will see in the dictionary that have à somebody, and then when you use a pronominal form in English, like, so for example, to think about somebody is penser à. They're crossing your mind rather than an opinion. Like, Luke, what do you think about Brian? Qu'est-ce que tu penses de Brian? Oh, I'm thinking about Brian. Je pense à Brian. Brian and Jessica are two really lovely people, and there's going to be a video about them soon because it's all very exciting. Let's just say if you're into eating really well and optimizing your health, you're going to be really interested. Yes, I've had a very enriching experience this week with some fellow YouTubers. More on that later. So basically, if you said I'm thinking of him, you go, oh, well, at Luke. So, je lui, that one has to be je pense à lui. Okay, so there are times I accept where at and lui will remain at lui, but most of the time in French, I'll give you a video underneath as well about the differences between those two techniques. It will be lui as the pronoun beforehand, most of the time. So therefore, je fais confiance à Luc, I trust Luc, je lui fais confiance. I trust him, I trust them, je leur fais confiance. It's indirect. I'm going to trust you. Je vais te faire confiance. Je vais vous faire confiance. He's happy, I trust him. Il est content que je lui fasse confiance. So all I'm doing is using the methodology of the direct and the indirect, and I'm just playing with the verb faire. I'm playing with the verb faire, and I'm bringing my little attachments along with me, okay? So command form, fais-moi confiance. Fais-moi confiance. Because tu me fais confiance, you know in a command form, fais-moi confiance, that you can't say me fais confiance. So to do a command form, to do an imperative, you normally just drop the subject. So you eat, tu manges, eat, mange. Eat it, tu le manges, is you're eating it. Command form, mange-le. Yeah, you start with a verb. So if you had tu te laves, you're getting washed. Get washed, lave-toi. You would move the te to the end, and therefore it would become a moi and a toi, rather than a me and a te. So the next one that you would see is avoir confiance en. Avoir confiance en. What's the verb in avoir confiance en that we should all recognize? Avoir, which is to have. So if you said, I trust Brian, j'ai confiance en Brian. Totally different expression, totally different expression, totally different expression. Okay? Totally different expression, totally different expression, totally different expression. Now, often in language, when you know there are two ways of saying something, I call this two rats trying to go down the same hole, which is a horrible expression, but it really does explain the scramble and the lack of clarity that's going to happen. So often when you don't know something in French, it's actually because you pretty much know two versions. So for example, if I said I'm used to something, then you've got j'ai l'habitude de faire quelque chose, or you've got je suis habitué à faire quelque chose. So I'm used to speaking in French with you guys. J'ai l'habitude de parler avec vous en français. Je suis habitué à